Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the great mystery, the divine, beyond the veil, those synchronistic connections, the deep knowing inside, and how we put all those pieces together to come into the truth of ourselves in the world that we live in, and how we come into harmony with the planet and all of life on earth. And as we wake up, that becomes so much more and more and more important to us, to be in harmony with all that is. And so I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, of course, and I love having these conversations. It's my favorite thing to do, is to understand at a deeper level what the planet wishes of us, and how we can become more aligned with that, and how we can help ourselves to really step into the truth and knowing from that centered place that's connected to all that is, and really discern the truth out of the fiction. And I love having guests on the show who can illuminate us with so much more insight about their own journey and inspire us to be courageous. And so today I have on the show John Perkins. John is an author and activist whose 10 books on global intrigue, shamanism, and transformation, including Touching the Jaguar, Shapeshifting, and the classic Confessions of an Economic Hitman, has been on the New York Times bestseller list for more than 70 weeks, sold over 2 million copies, and are published in 35 languages. As chief economist at a major consulting firm, he advised the World Bank, United Nations, Fortune 500 corporations, U.S., and other governments. He regularly speaks at universities, economic forums, and shamanic gatherings around the world, and is a founder and board member of the nonprofit organizations, the Pachamama Alliance and Dream Change. So welcome, John. I'm so honored to have you here with us.
Thank you, Carrie. It's great to be with you. It's an honor to be with you. And it's a real pleasure. Here we are, the day before Earth Day.
Yes, the day before Earth Day we're recording. It's April 21st right now, and tomorrow's the big day. We get to honor the Pachamama.
Yeah, exactly. We get to honor today too, incidentally.
Every day. collectively we all choose to do it at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I was with the Mayan people on December 21st, 2012, which was a very special day for them, a transition from the old world to the new world. And they made a point that was just a day of celebration, a day that marked the transition, but the transition's been going on for about 30 years before that, and will continue for another 30 or so years as we go through this period of tremendous transformation. So I think Earth Day is a little like that. It's this day where we can actually celebrate the specific day, but knowing that every day before and every day after is also Earth Day.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I think that more than ever right now, I've been called to do a lot of prayer, especially since this stay in place has happened. I feel like at the largest sense, this is Pachamama saying, hey, stop, stop everything, the biggest sense. And I think that, there are agents of change inside Pachamama that make things happen for whatever reasons they think they're doing it. But in the biggest sense, we're here to cleanse the planet of a whole lot of fear, is what I believe. So stay in place, pray, connect, right? Ground, be part of all that is. And so what's your journey been like in terms of opening up to this? Because I've read your book. I got an advanced copy of Touching the Jaguar, which you people, it's coming out June 14th. Very exciting book. Talks about the connection between shamanism and being this economic hitman and all of this. So tell us like a little bit about your awakening that would really help people to connect in with his messages of today.
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to, Carrie. Thank you. And incidentally, it does come out in mid-June, but you can pre-order it now, which I really hope you'll do, because you also get some bonuses, including an incredible online workshop that I'm offering. Just touchingthejaguarbook.com.
Touchingthejaguarbook.com. I will put that in the show notes.
Thank you. So, it's interesting that I was a Peace Corps volunteer deep in the Amazon rainforest back in the late 60s, early 70s. And I was very sick at one time. I was dying deep in the rainforest. There was no way I was going to get to a medical facility. And shaman healed me. And basically he healed me by teaching me to touch the jaguar. which means confronting our fears, confronting our obstacles, confronting those things that get in our way, rather than running from them, touching them, going to them. And in my case, it was a perception that some very, very strange foods and stuff I was drinking there were kind of what we call spit beer. It's a beer that's made by women chewing the manioc root and spitting it, and then it ferments into a beer. And then you can add water to it. It purifies the water. They know you can't drink the river water because there's too much organic matter in it, plants, dead animals, and so forth. They learned that a long time ago. So they make this spit beer and other strange foods that I grew up with very conservative tastes I come from about 300 years of Yankee Calvinists in New Hampshire. And so I saw on this shamanic journey that my Jaguar was a voice speaking to me whenever I ate these foods or drank this spit beer. This voice said, "Son, it'll kill you." And then I also saw how incredibly healthy the Shuar were, the people I was living with, the indigenous people, hunters and gatherers, how they, and if they don't die from a hunting accident or a snake bite or something like that, they live to be very old, and the men are all built like Tarzan. And the women, well, I was in my early 20s, so women were looking very interesting to me. And so I saw on that journey that it was, and the shaman said to me, when I'm on this vision quest journey with the shaman, at one point he says, "Touch the Jaguar," and this Jaguar appears, and it's the voice of, it's probably my mother or someone saying, "Son, it'll kill you." I touched it and saw that it wasn't the food and drink that was killing me. It was my mindset. It was this voice. And that changed everything. The next morning, I woke up and I was healthy. And then the shaman required that I train with him, come as apprentice. I graduated from business school in 1969. There was no future in shamanism. There is today, but there wasn't then. In fact, I'd never even heard the word before, but he saved my life. So I trained with him. And then after that, I went back into what I'd been educated to do. I became an economist, and I became chief economist at a consulting firm. And I did things that we've now classified as economic hitman activities. Things I thought at the beginning were the right thing to do, but later came to understand that they weren't. We can go into that more if you want to. But in any case, whenever I traveled around the world in this capacity, I would take as much time as I could to study with shamans in Indonesia, in Iran, in Egypt, and all over Latin America, and many other places in the world. And I learned that all shamanism is based on the idea that our perceptions mold our reality. So if you have a perception that the food and drink is killing you, and you really believe that perception, it probably will make you sick and may kill you. On the other hand, if you change that perception and realize that, oh, this food is making these local people healthy, it's in modern terms, it was very local and very organic. It was completely local and organic. Then that changes your reality. And, as I studied with shamans around the world, they all teach this. And then I realized that that's modern psychotherapy. That's quantum physics. That's advertising. That's what marketing is all about, changing perceptions. When enough people accept a perception or codify it into law, it has a huge impact on reality. We know that there's no United States, there's no Russia, there's no religion, there's no culture, there's no economy, there are no corporations except as we perceive them. And when enough people accept a perception or codify it into law, it impacts reality, changes everything. And so the idea of touching the Jaguar is all about, on an individual basis, going out and touching our blockages, our fears, anything that's getting in the way of us realizing what we really want to do in life, what we really want to be, what we really want to do. When we touch the things that are stopping us, they'll give us the power, the wisdom, the energy, the courage to change. And we can do that on an individual basis, but also on a global basis. So right now, this coronavirus is a big Jaguar, but people around the world are touching it. I've talked to so many people that are realizing that this is there to teach us something very, very important, as you just mentioned earlier. And when we understand that, then we start to change the reality. We change our perception of what it means to be human on this planet. When we can no longer go to stores, when we can't congregate in the way we're used to doing, when we have to live in different ways, when the United States government realizes that it's got to pay people to stay at home when they're sick, or it's going to spread the virus, that has a huge impact on reality, that change of perception. The Republicans now have voted to do something they've never voted to do before. And that's changing perception. So this virus is if we look at it as being an ally rather than an enemy, then we're touching that jaguar of the virus and learning from it.
You know, I love that you said that, and so many of the things you just said I hadn't even considered how the jaguar of this coronavirus would be helping people to be more compassionate or more empathetic, or realize, oh, we really do have to take care of people. And on the biggest sense, what I see, because I did some work studying Toltec wisdom through Heather Ashamara, who studied with Don Miguel Ruiz, is about this power of co-intention. You know, it's like what you believe, and then when you magnify that, and a bunch of people believe the same thing, it starts to become true. And what I see is that a lot of people are magnifying the fear of the virus, especially by, like, in my opinion, putting on their masks and like taking selfies like on social media and spreading this idea that, oh, we got to have masks on all the time, like even in our houses. It's like, in your mind, like, what's that doing to your mind? It's telling your mind it's not safe to breathe. It's not safe, you know, to have my mouth open. It's like, it's kind of interesting, the dynamics, and then the way that people are self-enforcing around it too, like enforcing each other, and then all the judgment and the blame and the shame and the whose fault is it, and like all of these things are all happening. And I'm aware of the dynamics of looking for someone outside of yourself to like blame for a condition you're experiencing. And I can see that we're doing that on a mass scale right now.
Well, we are. And if you really want to think about it, the leadership, including the president of the United States, is doing that. You know, he's blaming the media, blaming the World Health Organization, whatever. And we have a tendency to do that. We also have a tendency to want to return to normal. And I think this virus is giving us a great gift. It is an ally. For years, I've been talking about the importance of transitioning from a failed global governmental social economic system that many economists refer to as a death economy to that's consuming itself into extinction. It's absolutely destroying life as we know it, including its own resources, into a life economy that cleans up pollution and pays people to regenerate destroyed environments and come up with new regenerative technologies. I've been talking about that for many years. It's in the my previous book, The New Confession of the Economic Hitman. It's certainly a lot in the Touching the Jaguar book. And often when I talk about these things at lectures or in programs like yours, people will ask, but don't you think we need a major crisis to push us that way? And, you know, we've been getting local crises a lot recently, these once in 100-year events like hurricanes and fires and tornadoes and earthquakes are happening every year or so now, but they've been very, very localized. And so if you happen to survive that event, the hurricane, let's say, you can be pretty sure that within a matter of days, or maybe it's going to take a couple of weeks, but the outside world is going to come to help you. Water bottles will arrive, food will arrive, and then some leader is going to come in and say, "Hey, we're going to rebuild. We're going to return to normal. We're going to be even better than the old normal, but we're going to rebuild." And it's been easy on a local level to accept, but now suddenly everybody's been hit by the virus. The whole world, everybody on this planet. I have friends deep in the Amazon who I've been able to get in touch with by modern technology, amazingly. And they're impacted. Everybody's deeply impacted by this, and there is no outside world. Nobody's going to come to rescue us. And I think the biggest danger is if we decide that we're going to return to the normal that brought us here, because what we've got to do is create a new normal. And that's really what turning this death economy into a life economy. The new normal will be a new governmental, social, economic system that we can call a life economy that supports life on this planet, that really creates a human presence on this planet that's more environmentally sustainable and socially just. And that's what we're in the process of doing. I think we've been making headway in that direction even before the virus came, but hopefully the virus is really going to push us there. The other possibility is that it won't, that we will try to return to normal, and then we'll just be hit by something even more serious.
So it sounds like you're along the lines of my initial impression of this, that this is a Pachamama lesson on the biggest scale for each one of us.
Yeah, you know, one of the top environmental people at the United Nations just said that you know, that what we've proven in all of this is that we've stressed the Earth's resources beyond limits. And whether you look at it from a shamanic perspective and you say, Pachamama, Mother Earth, is speaking to us, which is the way shamans look at it, or whether you say, well, that's kind of woo-woo, but yeah, I can accept the fact that you know, Los Angeles can see blue sky now.
Yeah.
We've proven that human activity has created a lot of the pollution. We've seen it. Other people have seen the satellite images over China. We've seen so many things happen. Wild animals coming into city streets that were never there before. Things are happening, and so I think there's absolute proof from a scientific standpoint or any kind of a standpoint that the stressing of our planet is causing these problems. When you come right down to it, the death economy is the problem. Climate change is a symptom. Species extinction are a symptom. All the outrageous income inequality that often drives terrorism is a symptom. Those are not causes. These are symptoms. The cause is a system that doesn't work, what I call a death economy. And we're very, very strongly getting that message now, regardless of whether you look at it from a new age shamanic perspective or from a totally scientific perception that we've stressed our ecosystem, all of our systems, to the point where they can't continue the way that they've been evolving.
And I think it's important to say that that perspective is a perspective that might not be widely shared at this point, because the perspectives that are being shared as to like the cause of this are these, you know, oh, well, this is a bioengineered, you know, virus and so developed it, and then it's a political warfare, it's biological warfare. I mean, that's really the dialogue that's going on right now that I see out there in Facebook and other places where people are sharing information, is that this is actually some kind of like attack so people are not in the mindset of even noticing necessarily that, hey, look, LA doesn't have any smog. Hey, look, the Ganges River is now cleaning up. Hey, look at all these things. They're focused on still this dialogue about this is some kind of war between us and another country.
Well, that's something that the status quo very much wants to convince us. And that's one reason it's become so pro now, because as you mentioned at the beginning of the program, finding an enemy, an excuse, rather than we're the problem. Oh, no, this is the Russians, this is the terrorists, this is somebody that's, you know, the Chinese have created this virus. I mean, to me, I don't know where the virus came from. Perhaps it did leak out of the laboratory, but to insinuate that there's some group that's going to really benefit from this, I think is a distraction. And there's so many signs that's just not, that in fact, whatever the cause of this, we're not able to handle it. We don't have the systems. We've put so much money into our defense system, close to $700 billion a year. And now we've been forced to put it close to, it's going to probably exceed 3 trillion in the United States alone to deal with this coronavirus, which tells us that we might have been better off if over the years we'd put half of the military budget into making missiles and military equipment, and the other half we'd put into creating a defense system for against things like this virus and other things that are going to come. I often think of this woman shaman in Ecuador, the wonderful name of Maria Juana Yamberla. And many years ago, I was translating for a group I'd taken to her house up in the high Andes. And she said, you know, we humans are just like so many fleas. If we get to be too much of a nuisance, she'll just shake us all off. And then she pointed up at this volcano next to her house. It hovers over her house. And she said, you remember 20 years ago, that volcano was covered with a massive ice cap. It's not there anymore. Pachamama is twitching. She hasn't shaken us off yet, but she's twitching. And so there's a very strong message here, Maria Juana would say, that if we don't want to be shaken off, we better listen. But again, I think whether you look at it from that perspective or just from the purely scientific perspective, we know that we are causing this problem. And these attempts to distract us, the conspiracy theories, to me are a huge part of the problem. That no, we've got to admit it's us. We've got to change. It's not somebody else doing this to us. There are a lot of people doing a lot of things to us now, and there will be people stepping in to take advantage of this. Make no bones about that. That's definitely happening. But the cause of the problem, we need to take responsibility for each of us and all of us as a society around the world. And I actually think I've been in contact with people in many, many different countries. I've been on speaking tours since Confessions of an Economic Hitman came out, China and Russia and all over. And I really don't think the majority of people are buying into the conspiracy theory. It's some of the leadership is trying to make that happen. There is this whole subversive movement to try to distract us.
So these conspiracy theories are a distraction then from us understanding that really there's just global change that needs to happen. Why would these theories? Why would there be a need for these distractions? What's the purpose behind distracting us from the bigger message we're getting about global change and being sustainable on the earth?
Why did the U.S. government, after 9/11, tell us that we had to go after the Iraqis because they had weapons of mass destruction? When the Iraqis, it was pretty obvious for most people that they had nothing to do with 9/11. It was the Saudis more than anybody else, if you want to blame anybody. But because the people in power, the people who have most of the wealth and most of the power, they want to maintain the status quo. And so the best way to maintain the status quo is to say, hey, this happened because there's an enemy out there, and all we got to do is deal with that enemy, and then we can return to normal. And this isn't something that's going to have to change our whole economy. We don't have to do that. We can go back. Most of the people in the status quo are very dependent on the current economic system. They own the airlines, or the majority of it. They own the oil companies. They own the hotels and the resorts and the cruise lines and all the other drivers of our economy. And for them to consider maybe that has to change is terrifying to them. So they're terrified. So if they can convince us that we really don't need to change the way we live, that all we got to do is recognize that there are conspirators out there that are dead set on destroying what? Who are the conspirators that are going to gain from this? I don't know. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. But it does make sense that every time there's a crisis, people will step in to people in power and try to convince us that somebody else is the enemy. And all we got to do is support the people in power. Naomi Klein has written a lot about this in her book, Shock Doctrine, for example, of how when there's a shock, like this, it changes our perception. And when you change the perceptions, as I said earlier, we change the reality. And so shocks like this are used by people in power to move our perception in ways that will continue to help them to continue to be in power or even to gain more power.
You know, and so I've also seen a lot of things around overpopulation, for example, being an issue. Is overpopulation the issue, or is it how we live on the earth that's the issue, in your opinion?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think there probably is a, you know, a limit to how many people should be on this planet, although that can change a lot depending on technology. If you consider that, you know, something around 25 individuals or families control as much wealth as somewhere around 3/4 of the Earth's population. And in the United States, we have 3 individuals who have as much wealth as half the population. You realize that it's not a supply problem. It's not a resource problem. There's plenty of resources to take care of everybody if we just distribute it properly. We're terribly, terribly unbalanced. There's awful inequality. On the other hand, I do think that there is a point where, you know, at least given the system that we have today, where there is a limit on our population. Maybe the limit expands more and more and more if you change the system, if you come up with new ways of producing food and distributing it and so on and so forth. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I do believe that at this point in time, there's plenty of resources to go around. And, you know, in a way where this virus is teaching us that too, because suddenly this $2.2 billion and growing is being diverted from everything else to handle the virus and to pay people to stay out of work, because it's become pretty obvious even to the most conservative people that sending sick people to work is dangerous for the economy. If nothing else, it's dangerous for people and it's dangerous for the economy. It spreads this disease. So, you know, I don't, at this point in time, I don't think we have so much of a population problem as we do a distribution problem of resources. And yet at the same time, I think we really have to look at the population issue. It's very difficult to imagine how people living in places like Calcutta and New Delhi and Los Angeles and New York and all these major cities, how they can continue to live in an economic system that would change radically. And I don't think we need to change radically. I think, as I've said before, we move into a life economy where these people are paid to clean up pollution and to regenerate destroyed areas. Kind of like what was happened to end the Great Depression when we put in the New Deal sort of approach to things. And after every war, we've done that. And you know, the reconstruction of Europe after World War II was an amazing undertaking. And it was set up to reconstruct places, but to create new economies also, and to hire people, to pay people to do that.
So this is really interesting, thinking about consumerism. You know, consumerism seems to be like part of the issue, because capitalism and consumerism creates a situation where the best model is one where you have sustainable revenue from your consumers, right? Where you're going to be making reliable, predictable revenue off of your consumers for a long period of time. And so creating those situations where that would be, you know, your revenue model. So in that case, it would make sense to try to you know, save people's lives in the short term, because then, you know, you want to keep making your money in the long term. It's kind of an interesting idea. It just came across my brain. And so how do we step out of this whole system, you know, as individuals, as critical thinkers, as how do we become aware of the models that are actually operating in our programming? Because I also did a lot of recently a lot of looking into how our brains have been conditioned by, you know, the things we've been watching on the news or the things we've been watching in the movies, and our you know, a lot of our kids have been placed in front of the television, you know, as parents have been working. And so there's been a lot of conditioning of people's brains to think certain things, like with the advertising and lots of other things. How do we get ourselves out of this model and into a healthy, sustainable model for humanity?
You know, to answer that question is exactly why I wrote the book, Touching the Jaguar. And the subtitle is Transforming Fear into Action to Change Your Life and the World. And really what we're looking at here is how does an individual move forward with this? And so the book tells a lot of stories. It's written as a story book. It's true stories, but like Confessions of an Economic Hitman, because I think stories teach a lot. And it also then it gives you a whole process, a daily practice, in fact, that you don't have to do every day, but you could if you wanted to, or twice a week or whatever, about 10 minutes. Where what I really encourage people to do as individuals is to look at what is it that you most want for the rest of your life. What do you most want to do? If you're lying on that proverbial deathbed, what do you look back at and say, oh, I'm so glad I did that? Or, wow, I wish I had done that. And then, so you identify that. We can call that our higher purpose, our bliss, our dream, whatever it is. But it's what gives us the greatest satisfaction in life as individuals. And I'll give an example. For me, I love to write. So I want to write. That's part of it. And then we look at, okay, but how would that relate to the larger environment, to the world? How can I help the world, not just myself, but how do I also use this? And so for me, I write about these things that I write about it, transforming a death economy into a life economy, telling stories that I hope will move people to do that. And let me just say that if you happen to be a carpenter, for example, you like to work with wood, you really commit to working with wood, to being a carpenter, and you commit to doing it in very sustainable ways. Okay, that's and all right, then the next step is, so you've looked at your goal, you've looked at your higher purpose, you've looked at how that relates not just to you personally, but to the world. Now you look at what are your jaguars? What's standing in your way? What's keeping you from doing those sorts of things? So I was kept from writing for a long time because when I was in college and in high school, I'd been editor of my paper. I thought I was a good writer. In college, I had an English teacher that was highly critical of my writing, and it really hurt because the writing was so important to me. So I stopped writing. I quit school, and then I went back to school and studied business, became a business major, and went into business because writing just hurt too much to be rejected. And then suddenly, okay, or a carpenter could look at, well, I can't use sustainable materials because they cost a little bit more and my clients don't want to pay more. That's the Jaguar, that's the block. Then the next step is you go out and you touch that Jaguar. So for me, what it was that I then realized that English professor also criticized Bob Dylan's writing. And Bob Dylan won the Nobel Prize in Literature. So I realized that English teacher wasn't the final authority, even though I'd sort of taken him as that. I didn't need to be put down because he didn't like my writing, because he didn't like a Nobel Prize with his writing either. The carpenter then can say, well, my advice to the carpenter would be, well, tell your clients that maybe they have to pay a little bit more, but that's not a cost. It's an investment in the future. Using sustainable materials as an investment in their future and the future for their kids and grandchildren. So we touch that Jaguar and we change our perception. I can write, I can be a carpenter and use sustainable materials and convince my clients. And then you define what actions you actually take to make that happen. And so for a writer, you gotta write. I made the commitment. I love to write. I'm going to write about things that change the world. I've got over this blockage that somebody criticized my writing. So what? And now what have I got to do? Well, I got to write every day. I'll commit to writing every day. Well, there may be days that I'll miss, and I won't beat myself up if I do, because I'm on a show like this. And right now there's a lot going on, so I'm not doing a lot of writing. I try to still write every day, but we write. And what does the carpenter do? He goes out and he does carpentry work using sustainable materials and talks to his clients and says, hey, we're investing in the future here. Every one of us can do that one way or another. You as a host of a show like this, you probably have to go touch a few Jaguars in order to convince yourself that you really could make this happen.
Well,
You
let me tell
see?
you,
Yeah,
John, when I founded the Skills Not Pills movement and did a whole summit and I interviewed all these alternative health people and exposed a lot of things, yeah, I touched a lot of Jaguars.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
you
and I
see?
like looking around like, am I, you know, do I have somebody following me? Am I, you know, because
Yeah,
I'm out here, I'm sharing information that's disrupting the system. I'm like looking at my mail to see if I have some kind of lawsuit, you know, like, it's like, okay, listen, all I'm saying is follow the money. Follow the money. I've been saying this for years to people.
yeah.
Like, why do you think the whole system's set up this way? And it's just the denial in the brain is so immense to like embracing these new ideas. I think it's exactly what you said when you were relaying your own story. It's authority. It's confronting authority that is the biggest fear. Even though in this country we have the illusion of freedom, well, it's only an illusion unless you enact it. It's an illusion unless you touch the Jaguar. Your freedom is just an illusion. You have to actually claim freedom. That's my belief. I was a little activism there for you.
No, totally agree with you, Carrie. And you know, and it's an illusion, but an illusion is a perception, and that impacts reality. So if you really believe that, then it impacts you. And I'll give you another instance. So the manuscript for Confessions of an Economic Hitman was rejected by 39 publishers.
Because they were too afraid
All
to
the major,
publish it. They were too afraid of like the perceived outcome of publishing your book.
yeah, and editors just didn't have the big companies. Interesting that the Random Houses and the Penguins, which have since have published books of mine, but they didn't have the resources to vet it. So I get 39 rejection letters. That's not fun, you know. And after about the seventh or eighth letter, the temptation is, I'm not going to send this out anymore. I don't want any more of these rejection letters. But that's the Jaguar. And
Mm-hmm.
because I'd gone through this thing with the English teacher, I'd learned, well, maybe they rejected it, yeah, because they're afraid of it. Or maybe the editor had a fight with his or her spouse at breakfast and came in and was in a bad mood and just threw everything into the rejection pile. I had a bad headache, or who knows? But it doesn't necessarily have to be a reflection on me. And finally, a very courageous small publishing house published it, and it went on the New York Times bestseller list almost immediately. And then all the guys who had rejected it, the Random Houses and the Penguins, had a bidding war to try to buy the paperback rights, and Penguin eventually won that. And Random House then came back to me and asked me to write another book, and so did Penguin. So, you know, it's that. Yeah, I could have had the perception, well, all these publishing houses are rejecting it, so it's no good. But I touched that Jaguar and said, I know this is a good book. There's some reason why they're not publishing it. And I'm just going to keep trying and stay in there. I'm going to keep touching that Jaguar. And it paid off. And, you know, you are doing what you love doing. It's obvious. I can see it in your
Yeah,
face.
I love it.
But you're also doing it in a way that is changing the world, is helping people to understand the very topics that we're talking about today. You had to touch the Jaguars to get through that, as you just pointed out, and you're still every day, maybe, and every time you do an interview, you may be having to touch another Jaguar. It's like every
Yeah, I
time
touch it all the time. And as a matter of fact, I got Jaguars all over the place in my house. And because I like
well,
it.
I
Yeah.
wear them myself. So I can always touch them. I got a bunch of
Keep
different
touching my
Jaguars on them.
Jaguar. You know, the thing about it is that I found that the fear of the thing is always bigger than and meaner and uglier than like actually moving through the thing and getting to the other side, where usually it's better. So in some ways what I've learned is that, yeah, my brain is got a lot of reptilian ancient coding in it, things that are at this time, as I do my light work and I keep moving forward, those things get triggered and unleashed. Like maybe it's past lives, or maybe it's all kind of, you know, I could make up stories about what it is, but all of that stuff is just fear. It's just illusion. It's the Maya. It's like, are you going to move through it and into to the garden, or are you going to stay on the other side and stuck in fear and never get the glory, which is like, the glory is actually, to me, being in the garden on earth and knowing that, like, this is what the Carol people, they live in the rainbow light. They live in the garden. They live at 16,000 feet, but they do it and they're beautiful, and you visit them and their hearts are full and their eyes are shining, and they're in love. And that's where I want to be every day.
Yeah, well, and you can be. And, you know, that's, um, a lot of shamans, different shamans from different cultures have told me that the most important thing in life is to uh, feel ecstatic all the time. And what they mean by ecstatic is not joy or what we often think of as ecstatic. They mean connected.
Mm.
So, you know, my mother was very close to her, I'm an only child, and she always encouraged me to be a writer. She had a stroke and spent 46 days in a hospital, not able to move any part of her body except her right arm and hand. And then she died. And I spent a lot of that time with her, and I was writing the book Shapeshifting. And she could hear, but she couldn't speak. And I would read it, parts of it as I wrote it, sitting in next to her hospital bed. I was working on a little computer. Read it to her, and if she liked what I wrote, she'd squeeze my hand once. If she liked it but thought it needed some more work, she'd do it 2 times. If she just ought to tear it up and rewrite and start all over again, she'd do 3 times. Now, it was an ecstatic experience because we connected in a way at that time like we'd never connected before. It wasn't joyous in that she was dying, she was paralyzed, and we were all suffering, but it was a deep, deep connection. And I think, you know, I'm teaching an online webinar April 29th. And one of the things that we'll go into is how do we deal with this Jaguar, like right now? Like, I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to go on the 29th, but one of the things I've been talking to people about is if you're sitting at home self-isolating and you're saying to yourself, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm a social animal. I got to get out and get people. I can't do this for another week. Forget about another month or 2 months or however. I can't do it. That's a big Jaguar. And then you freak out. But if you touch that Jaguar, the Jaguar then says, hey, haven't you always wanted to learn to play the flute? You got a flute and the internet can teach you how to play it. Or haven't you always wanted to spend more time writing or painting or doing yoga by yourself or talking to your family that lives overseas or whatever? Read books, watch movies. Well, here's your opportunity. This being self-isolated is giving you an amazing opportunity to do something you've always wanted to do. Suddenly, the Jaguar has given you the wisdom, the energy, the perception that you are being given a gift here. And I think, you know, and in the workshops that I do, including in this webinar, I really try to help people. We do a process where each individual can kind of look at what are the Jaguars that, what the same things I mentioned before. What is your bliss? What do you most want to do for the rest of your life? How does that relate to the larger world, making a better, larger world? What are the obstacles, the Jaguars standing in your way? How do you touch them, change your perception, and then what actions do you take? You go through this whole process, and people come out of an experience like that really feeling very different about themselves in the world. And you know, that's it's a beautiful technique, and it's short, but it's all about, again, it's about realizing that our reality is molded by our perceptions. That's exactly what you've been saying, Carrie, is this reality is molded by our perceptions. If you perceive that when you interview some person, you're going to get a lawsuit, you're going to get into trouble, you're either not going to interview that person, or you're probably going to be very cautious and not do a very good job. But if you realize that maybe what you're going to do is be empowered by interviewing that person, and even if there's no lawsuit, that'll give you encouragement that you can keep doing that. If there is a lawsuit, maybe it's going to give you an even bigger audience, because you can use that lawsuit to say, look what they're doing. Look what, you know, when I interviewed this person, there's something really important to say. I get these lawsuits, which means that somebody really doesn't want this message to get out there. And that means the message is critically important. And so suddenly, I mean, that happened, you know, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, the State Department created a website called the Misinformation Website And it was
They're
just
doing that to a
BS.
lot of people right now. And that's why
Well,
people,
yeah, but I was the only one on that website at the time, and it was just pure BS. But it sold a lot of books for me. It was the best, one of the best things that ever happened was for the State Department to create that website. And I later found out the way, and I didn't understand why would they do this, because I would think they would keep it under test. But what I realized is that they had calls, like an ambassador in Greece, a U.S. ambassador said, you know, this book's very embarrassing because people come into my office, business leaders and politicians, and say, what do you think of that book? Is it true? What's the official position? And he said, I don't know what to say as ambassador. I don't know what to say. So I go back to the State Department and I realized there's a lot of other people being put in the same position. The State Department had to come out with a website so that U.S. politicians around the world, when they were asked that question, could just say, hey, we have an official position on that. Go to our website.
yeah,
And it sold a lot of books for me.
it sold a lot of books, and some people that want to keep drinking the Kool-Aid will keep drinking the Kool-Aid, and that website, that little website gives them a way to do that. And then other people who are ready to be red pilled go, wait a second, I don't buy in. I say no. This is the thing I've been talking to people about, and we're almost out of time. But I love this idea of sharing with people about manifestation. The law of attraction, manifestation, being what you believe, your beliefs manifesting your reality. So everything outpictured is actually inside of you. It's all your stuff. And also, where people are gathered with the same vision, well, they can manifest an outcome. So a lot of people are getting angry right now because they're starting to see how an outcome's been manifested based on a vision created by some people who wanted to create the vision, and it worked. So here we are. We're experiencing some of those outcomes. Well, okay, want to be angry at these people and privilege and having that happen? Okay, well, all they did was prove that it works. So you have the same power within you. Congratulations, you just got a massive lesson in how co-creation works. Okay. And you can create too. And the power of the people, with so many more people empowering themselves and waking up and realizing that we can co-create the earth we desire and that we are sovereign and we can do this together. You've just seen it works. So don't be angry. Say, thank you for showing me. All right, let's get to work. We're going to create this together. That's the way I take it. So sorcery often ends up turning itself on itself, and this is what karma is. It never works out for you in the end if you do that.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Well, that's the power of perception, mindsets.
Yeah.
Create everything. There are no human institutions. There's very little that human beings have connection with that isn't first created by perception.
Yep. And so be careful of your perceptions, be mindful, and get outside the box. Touch your Jaguar when you find it. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love all this. So, okay, again, the book is touchingthejaguar.com.
The book, touchingthejaguarbook.com, or you can go to johnperkins.org, either way. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. And yeah, but to order the book, pre-order the book and get it on this workshop. And we've got a whole new Facebook group that's just dedicated to this. It's really wild. It's really fun. And several other bonuses that come if you order the book before April 29th, which is next week, at touchingthejaguarbook.com or johnperkins.com. Either one of those will work. But the most direct one is touchingthejaguarbook.com.
Awesome. You can pre-order your book and you can get in there. I'll go ahead and release this timely, and so that way you guys can get access to that workshop he's talking about if you want to attend it. And I recommend everybody get comfortable with jaguars, because that is your path to freedom. I love mine.
Absolutely, yeah, they're great animals. They can be dangerous and they can be wonderful allies. And if we can look at the virus the same way, it's dangerous and it's also an ally if we deal with it as it's asking us to. I believe it's asking us to, on one level or another. Again, you can look at it shamanically or scientifically, but we're getting this very strong message of change. And I think that for everybody, one of the jaguars is the fear of change.
Yes, the fear of change, you know, and I just saw a live stream with one of the Caro medicine people. He's a really, you know, Puma. It's just fathom that is his name. And he said that this is the gentle wake up call.
Yeah.
We're on the better destiny line. This is the better destiny line, people. You know, we might argue with it and say it's uncomfortable and I don't like this, but this is the better destiny line. We made it to the better destiny line, and this is the gentle wake up. So congratulations, we did our
I
job.
totally agree. You know, we've been having other gentle ones none of them are all that gentle, but the hurricanes, the earthquakes, the fires, these are localized, and that didn't work. So now we're getting the gentle global one. And if we don't listen to it, it'll get a lot tougher. And I think we ought to look at ourselves as blessed to be at this time. I feel blessed. I hope all your listeners are feeling blessed that we're alive at this time when we're getting this very, very strong message and we can react to it, we can act accordingly, and we can have a lot of fun doing it. I mean, I'm not talking about going, you know, living in caves. I'm talking about creating a new form of life that's a relationship of people to the earth, to the planet, that's environmentally sustainable and socially just and fun. We can have a lot of fun doing it.
Yes, we can. I intend to have fun. I came here for fun, John. You know, when all this fear started setting in, I started finding the fear fog. I was like, wait a second, I did not come here for that. I came here for the fun planet. I came here for creation. I know in my heart, I came here to create beauty and love and joy and magic all around. That's what I came for. And the Jaguar is part of it, you know, moving through those fears. So I realized, oh, wow, okay, I get to create this for myself. So thank you. Thank you for your inspiration. Thank you for your wonderful book. Again, you guys, this is the book. You can get it. touchingthejaguarbook.com, and you can pre-order it. I've already read it. It's awesome. I feel really honored and privileged to be able to have read that early and to interview you today, John. And thank you for all that you do for Pachamama Alliance. Thank you for working for the earth and tirelessly bringing these messages out there. I appreciate you.
You're welcome, Carrie. And incidentally, the book tells this whole story of the Pachamama Alliance, the beginning of it and so forth. Thank you for what you do. It's extremely important. So please keep up your great work. And I deeply appreciate what you do. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you so much. Okay, so everybody, you know what to do. You need to share this out. If you found any bit of value from this conversation, please share it out to your social media, to your friends and your family. Share this out so people can start touching that Jaguar in themselves and we can really be liberated. This is the path. It's going to take every single one of us. No one gets left behind. We need everybody to come along. Eventually, if they're ready, to come along to the new earth. And I don't want to leave anybody behind. I want everyone to get the good stuff. So please share it out. And also like and subscribe and all of that stuff, because that tells the engines that you need to do this, okay? And now here come your kisses. I gave everybody kisses on the way out, so you can join me if you want. These are totally COVID-free kisses. They are electronic, and they're coming your way, people. Here they come. Love you, people. We're in it together. All right, have a big hugs. Have a great week, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.